TD Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Zimet, your State Farm Insurance agent in DeKalb. Call 815-748-3101 or stop by at 2587 Sycamore Road, Suite D in DeKalb. Like a good neighbor, Scott Zimet and State Farm are there. Pizza Villa, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more at 824 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. Don't forget Kids Eat for Free on Thursday. For delivery or pickup, go to pizzavilla.com or call 815-758-8116. Eldercare Services of DeKalb. Safe, secure, and supported, helping you stay in home where you want to be. Call 815-758-6550 or stop in at 1701 East Lincoln Highway in DeKalb or on the web at ecsdekalb.org. My Insurance Guy in Sycamore covers Medicare to auto care and everything in between. Stop by at 204 South Main Street in Sycamore. Call 815-899-0950 or online at myinsuranceguy.com. Welcome into TD Ryan Unleashed, podcast number 47. Honored and privileged to have with us the DeKalb County Clerk and Recorder Office. Will not have a primary contest, but Douglas Janicke and has filed to run against County Clerk and Recorder Tasha Sims, who is seeking re-election as Republican. And joining us right now is the aforementioned Douglas Janicke. Douglas, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking time to join us here. You know, I was wondering about this. You know, first thing I thought about was Democrats and Republicans. You know, I just had Andy Sullivan, the sheriff here, and I realized that the sheriff's office is Republican and Democratic. How do you feel about this office, the DeKalb County Clerk and Recorder's Office, being or the Democrat or Republican?
That's a great question. It's a question I've been asked quite a bit. It's kind of unfortunate that it needs to be a partisan race. You know, I mean, most of the work is right there in the name. You know, county clerk. You're doing clerical work here. You know, sitting agendas, taking minutes at the county board meetings. You're, issuing licenses. You're, making sure things are dotted and crossed. And the only real thing that's partisan about the office is, running elections. So, looking over the list of responsibilities that the county clerk has, it's all stuff that I'm doing on a day-to-day in my job in a private company.
Okay.
And, looking at on the election side, it's just something that's very important to me. So I decided, hey, nobody's, as you said, I don't have a primary opponent. Nobody else was going to run. And I don't really think anyone should be running on any office unopposed. It kind of stifles innovation, if you will.
Well, we used to hear the term learning curve, but obviously a job like this that you're taking, you can't really have a linear learning curve, but it sounds like we would be able to hit the ground running.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, thankfully, you have a staff there in place who's frankly done a really good job. I've heard nothing but good things about how the county clerk's office has been run. So it'll be a big boon to be able to do that instead of, going into an office that's empty and kind of having to learn from the ground up. So,
all right, well, let's get to know Douglas a little bit better. First of all, I'll remind you that we want to welcome our new sponsor who's been with us now, the Junction Eating Place. The Junction Eating Place at 816 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. You can stop by there. Wonderful, wonderful breakfast. They got your train go around there, too. Call them ahead of time if you want to order to go. 758-5441, 758-5441. That's, of course, with the 815 area code. And also, Takis to Go. Takis to Go DeKalb.com. Takis to Go DeKalb.com. They're at 816 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. Everything from gyros, chicken, hot dog, gourmet burgers, specialties beyond menu. Call for ordering 815-739-7146, 739-7146. We thank Chris and the gang over there at the Junction. I'm sure you've been over there, Douglas, had yourself a meal or two over at the Junction, right?
Yeah, served me very well in college, waking up those early mornings before class at the Junction pretty often.
So let me ask you the biggest question, that is, why run now? Why run? Because, it's such a tough time to be to run for a political office, and the mudslinging. Of course, it was always mudslinging, but now it seems to be taking it to another degree. And why do this now, Douglas, at this point in your life?
For sure. I mean, I have been interested in politics for quite some time, and it's just something that I've wanted to get involved and be able to make an impact in the community. So yeah, I'm comfortable in where I'm at in my career currently, but when opportunities present themselves, you gotta jump at them. So
now, what kind of young man did you run for office in high school and stuff? Were you class student body president?
No. I was a bit of an underachiever back in those days.
That's honest of you to say that.
Yeah. I graduated from a small school in Lena Winslow. Was toward the bottom of the class there.
Okay.
But, it doesn't really matter where you started. It just matters that you get it figured out. I went to Highland Community College in Freeport, got my associate's degree there, and transferred down here to NIU and just
Okay.
decided to stay around. It's a great community. It's the comforts of a small city, but close enough to everything that you can really experience whatever you want. So,
And we're certainly growing, that's for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the big part of it too. I want to be able to serve that community as it continues to grow and expand, and decided to run just to make an impact.
All right. Well, now a big part of that community is Northern Illinois University. We were talking to Tasha Sims about that, about whether, getting over there, getting the kids involved and getting voted. And we were talking about, I guess it was the election before that, where there was a big problem with long lines and kids were registering that day, and it really bogged things up. Do you have any different plan on that? Or how would you approach NIU and getting more young people to register to vote?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be there. You got to meet people where they're at. Obviously you need to get permission first of all, but get into those buildings. The student center, into the engineering building, the business building, the mathematics building, all the different spaces where people are going to be.
Now, is it realistic to think of all those buildings, or would there be one prime location you'd like to go
I would
to?
have to imagine that would be, especially come, later in the spring when it gets warm out,
Sure.
Earlier in the fall, camping out there on campus where everybody's running back and forth. It's big, and they've done well to get, people registered and voting. And, like you said, it's important to make sure they're ready to go by the time the election rolls around.
Would you approach the kids differently in terms of motivating them to register? I don't want to give away prizes or anything, but just getting more kids to actually register. Because we were talking to Tasha Sims, your opponent, and she says inevitably the kids wait till the last minute to register. And we're all, you and I are both, because I was a procrastinator back in the day. So it's really hard to get around that, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a lot of people don't realize just how easy it is to get registered to vote. Realistically, it takes 5-10 minutes to sign some papers and get things sent off. And like I said, you just got to meet them where they're at and let them know, hey, this isn't something that you need to stress about. You're not taking a test here.
Now, I vote here at the library. We're recording this at the DeKalb Public Library, and I come in and they ask me what precinct I'm in. I always 23 because I always think of Michael Jordan.
Sure.
But then I sign a little thing, and then I vote. Now, what do you think about this voter ID being proposed? Again, it wouldn't come up this election, obviously. Sure. So what are your thoughts about it in the future?
Well, it's tough, right? Because you want to make sure that your elections are legitimate and accurate, right? So having people present some sort of ID, but at the same time, you want to make it as easy as possible for people to vote. So I don't think that it's really something that needs to be done the day of, right? When you do that, when you register to vote, you have to prove who you are in order to register. So I think that for the most part, the safeguards that we have in place currently are plenty. You look at what the data tells you, and voter fraud is something less than 0.1%, and so I think that a lot of it is a bit of fear mongering, just trying to keep things in the news to keep people distracted from certain other big issues. And,
a lot of that going on right now.
Yeah.
Now, we're recording this right before the primaries. As a matter of fact, it's coming up here at the end of mail-in voting, coming up on March 12th and then March 16th, the last day for early voting, and then the election primary actually on the 17th. What do you anticipate, Douglas, in terms of a turnout? We were talking about how, anemic it's been through the years, but suddenly people seem to be a little more politically aware. Do you think that might be a little more busier primary this time around?
That was the hope in 2024, is that we would have a really big turnout and that people were politically motivated.
It was better, right? I think it was better.
Yes. In terms of percentages, of course, nationwide, at least my side of the aisle didn't do as well as was anticipated.
You're a Democrat. We should point that out, right? Okay.
Absolutely, yes. And so, this upcoming midterm, I think people are motivated. You see it in the protests that are happening all over the country, including, right here down
Hopkins Park, and then over on campus. Yeah,
exactly. So I would hope to see a solid turnout, and I'll be here at the library myself on the 17th to vote. It'll be an interesting thing to put a check by my own name.
That's very cool. So now, when we talk about the election itself, well, let's learn more about you now. You were talking about your. Let's go back to your work history. You don't mind? You were at the Automator Parts. Products right now?
Currently.
Okay.
I love my job currently.
Now, how would that help you with being a DeKalb County clerk and recorder?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, on the day-to-day, I'm, filing reports, making sure that contracts are filled out properly, doing overall clerical work, if you will. I have to confer with, our marketing folks and our counting folks all day long and be on the phones, talking with people, convincing people to do things, that kind of thing. So,
Okay.
being in sales is,
Extremely difficult, speaking
Yes.
from a personal perspective.
yes, it requires a lot of dedication. You got to maintain a positive mental attitude. And so I think that experience, especially through my other positions with, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, especially.
Okay.
You're just constantly needing to
Wait, are you working 3 jobs right now? Am I reading this right?
No. So I used to work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and that's a position in which you just have to be constantly on your feet,
Yeah.
on your toes, running back and forth all over the place. So I think that that experience would help quite a bit.
Now, you were clerk too, a former store clerk at Save a Lot as well. Again, interacting with the folks there. It's great to know. And then, all started with the sandwich artist at a Subway store back in the day. But that to me shows the work ethic. So you were working at a young age. You went right to work.
My first job, I was 15. I went and got a
good
work
for you.
permit at 15. I wasn't going to be able to afford a car. I didn't. I went out and rode my bike across the railroad tracks every afternoon to go and be a sandwich artist. I got $500 to buy my first car. And that's what got me to community college every day. So
That's great.
yeah, it's when you come from a background with no additional funding, you got to figure out a way to get it yourself.
Now tell us about growing up. How was it? Were mom and dad struggling a little bit, or was it?
So I grew up in Lena, northwest
Lena,
corner
okay.
of Illinois here. With my grandparents and my mother, so I didn't really have, father wasn't really in the picture there. So it was a pretty poor background, to be honest with you. My grandfather had some health issues. My grandma was the cook at the bar there in town. So, had a lot of lunches in the summers there.
Sounds like they had that old-fashioned work ethic.
Absolutely. Yeah, my grandpa was a carpenter. He was a roofer for 30 years. He wouldn't get home until 7, 8 o'clock at night, and always tan. Always. Now he's dealing with the consequences of that. Now he's got melanomas popping up all over the place. But swinging a hammer all day long keeps you in pretty good health. So he's still doing just fine at 83 years old.
Oh, God bless him. That's great to hear that too. So let's talk about now, before we get into the other aspects of what the DeKalb County Clerk and Recorder do. When we talk about security, I was talking to you off the air a little bit about that, about cybersecurity and whether the voting machines can be attacked or not. And what are your thoughts about where it stands right now? I know you don't know everything about DeKalb County and what kind of voting situation we have, but do we have those voting machines? Do you trust the voting machines? Would you change that if you were elected and for the following election?
I mean, we have, paper ballots that we fill out when we come in. The mail-in ballots are on paper, and I think that's got to be your backbone, right?
Mm-hmm.
I understand the simplicity, the convenience of voting digitally. I think that those paper ballots, having that actual documentation to back up what you say is very important. I think that the only real fear that we have to have in elections is people who already have access, people that are allowed in that we already know about. I'm not really concerned with, foreign actors in our local elections kind of thing, right? But, there are instances in which, as the person in charge of the Republican Party right now would like to have elections done a certain way.
Yes.
And it's important that they maintain accuracy and security. And so, like I said, I'd love to keep the paper ballots as that backbone.
I think a lot of us feel that way too, because it's just too scary, the idea of the computers and people being able to hack into the computers. And this way, it's kind of old school. And I didn't realize Tasha was telling us that you can look up your vote. So in other words, it's registered, right? Yes. So after I vote, I can look up and see that my vote was recorded.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's great. Obviously, it's important to keep that anonymous so that you don't have
right.
Personal disputes in those terms. But yeah, it's especially for the folks that are early voting, mail-in voting, to make sure that their vote got counted. It's a nice system.
Now, as we look at the primaries here coming up again, we're recording this right before the primaries. I don't consider myself a Democrat or a Republican. And I think a lot of people, especially these days, feel that way. But yeah, when we want to vote in the primary, we have to decide either Democrat or Republican to vote on those particular. So that's no other. But once you do that, you're not locked into that, or are you? How does that work in terms of I want to vote in the primary, I'm going to be a Democrat, but then I might, in the fall, vote all Republican, right? I mean, that's my option.
I believe Illinois has, closed primaries, so you have to register as a Democrat or a Republican and vote in that primary or the other.
That's a closed primary? Okay.
So then, of course, when you get into the general election, you vote whichever way that you would like. I mean, that'd be something if you were had to vote.
Yeah,
down
locked
the
in.
ballot as
Yeah.
your registered party. 'Cause, of course, there are folks on my side of the aisle that I don't agree with everything that they say or do, and perhaps I might consider voting for the other person if I know all of their stances on things. So it's good that we're not locked in on that.
All right, very good. Now, we're here at the library, and I picked this up here. There's all kinds of great information, too. Again, but is it getting to the people that do? I know the young people don't like the paper. We old people like paper like this here. And you have the 2026 Voter Guide, information for DeKalb County, Illinois voters. It really breaks everything down, Douglas. Who's eligible to vote? What do I need to vote? Now, what do we need to vote? We're talking about that. Do we still have to? You have to register initially, right? So what do you need then? You got to have an ID or what do you need exactly? Well, I'll put you on the spot there.
No, that's not not off the top of my head. I don't recall exactly what.
Well, it's not. That's right. There's really nothing. How do I register to vote? Some states offer online voter registration or allow you to check in the registration status line. You can find the status information at www.eac.gov/vote. You can register to vote in person at your local election official office. So it's pretty.
County clerk's office, you can go in there.
Go down there and register
to vote.
Okay.
Absolutely. I personally was registered. The first time I registered was right in class at Iowa Community College. It was brought out
Is that right?
The paperwork to sign and everything. We were responsible for putting a stamp on it and putting it in the mailbox.
What a great thing to teach, that is.
Absolutely.
And then they go into voting in person as opposed to voting by mail. Now, what do you feel about voting by mail? Now, I know it's ironic that the Republican Party is saying that they're against voting by mail, yet majority of their votes were by mail. So it's interesting to see. Do you see problems with voting by mail?
No, it's extremely convenient, of course, for people that that work a full-time job that don't unfortunately get the day off on voting day. Of course, in a perfect world.
Would you like to see that?
All of us, absolutely. I think it's that important. It's a civic duty. Of course, it's a privilege and a right that we have in this country to be able to vote. So I think it's an important thing for folks to see it that way. A lot of folks, they don't think that their vote matters that much. But of course, as you mentioned in a previous episode, I think it was the mayor of Cortland won their election.
Oh, Mayor Sandwich won by 7 votes.
Yes, yeah. Yes, so of course, right there, you have one family of 8 people go and vote for the other side, and there you go.
I knew a couple that were one was Republican, one Democrat. They said they didn't vote because they would just cancel each other out. But that's a bad way of thinking of it.
I think so too, because it doesn't fully represent the amount of people who have those opinions and, the constituents that those candidates would be serving. You know what I mean? I think that everybody who has an interest should get out and vote, and that's how you get the best representation possible.
Now, this great book that I'm looking at right now, not only telling you how, what, and where to vote, but then that breaks down, it gives me a sample ballot as well, which I think is a great idea. But obviously all this is online too, Douglas, when we think about the younger voters, and they're going to look at this stuff online, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really easy to pull that up on your phone, and then, of course, you can look up right here, the TD Ryan Unleashed podcast, and see what those people have to say about their local issues.
Thank you for that, Douglas. Now, there are some big issues. Obviously, the U.S. Senate, with Dick Durbin stepping down, the Democrats have like 10 people running, and Republicans have 6 on that side. So there is some important stuff going down here, isn't there?
Absolutely. It's a very tightly contested race there, especially I believe the 2 top candidates right now are Raja Krishnamurthy and Juliana Stratton, the lieutenant governor.
They're running ads up the yin-yang. Boy, absolutely. I mean, we can't turn the TV off without seeing that.
The amount of money that is spent on these elections is it's outrageous.
Well, I was talking to one of the gentlemen running for the county seat there, saying that we could have saved hunger, but we spent in the last election.
Absolutely.
The amount of money that was spent. It's kind of a sad thing. And then the governor, obviously, the governor, Pritzker, going unopposed, but then a lot of Republican candidates there, and we'll see who ends up with that. You got a couple of people from Attorney General. So, again, all the more reason to get out and vote, right, for the primaries. Yeah.
Yes.
And hopefully we'll see a good turnout there. Now, when we talk about what you guys do at the DeKalb County Clerk and Recorder, let's talk about that. Now, birth certificates, that's something I never thought. None of us think about our birth certificates until we have to either get a passport or something of that nature. But so you handle passports, the birth certificates, you like the way it's being done there, or is there any changes you would do there?
Yeah, I mean, the passports I've done just down at the post office here in town, so I'm not gone to the county clerk's office. But yeah, I mean, if you're born in whatever county you happen to have been born in, to go and get your birth certificate, I think that it's not as it's an important thing to some folks. You know, we have currently a bill that could require you to have that.
Well, that's what, yeah, that's, many of us are thinking about that.
So, you know, I think it's I believe you have to pay to get a copy of your birth certificate. I'm not really sure.
I think you do, yeah,
is,
because I had to get one, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's kind of a fair thing. You know what I mean? That's my birth certificate from when I was born. It's just a record that's there. I'm not sure if you should need to have that printed and stamped and sent out to you. But, you know, I think that the county clerk's office obviously is there and is doing an important task in getting people those records. And from everything that I've heard so far, the staff there is doing a great job of addressing those.
All right, very good. You know, we had one of our early podcasts was with Denny Miller, the longtime DeKalb County coroner. He was a coroner for almost 40 years or over 40 years. But I didn't realize when I was looking up doing research on him, they had death records. I'm like, oh my gosh. And cause of that's all the different things that you never think about too. But that's a very important thing, obviously.
Yeah,
death records.
and obviously you got to make sure that stuff is accurately reported and recorded, so that
Yeah.
you know, in the future, if people need to check on that you have it properly documented. So important stuff.
And then what else? Well, of course, obviously the election and the primary elections. Now, Tasha started to explain the statement of economic interest. So this is people running for office, right? We have to say who we're getting money from and where we're getting money from, right?
Right, absolutely. I think that's something that should be a little bit more personal. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm getting money from this PAC or from this group. I think that be important for people to literally put their money where their mouth is, or put their mouth where their money is, if you
Now,
will.
but using that not against you, but with you, though, in terms of your running as a Democrat and Republican for this DeKalb County Clerk office,
Sure.
should you be careful about who you're accepting money from?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a local election that I'm not sure that many large vested interests would want to put a bunch of money into. But I do think that's an important thing, is to obviously declare where that is coming from and whom, and so that you know what someone's interests really are.
Well, we're seeing that on a national level, aren't we, right now? Because with the senators and the congressmen that are passing the trading stocks there, and they're going to say, hold that up there a little bit. So
No, absolutely. They're
I don't know how it's going on for so long, actually, but
it's been when that originally happened and became a big deal, I was just a little kid. You know what I mean? So
sure.
I didn't have much to say about it. But now that I'm looking at it from a grown perspective, I'm just like, that's not quite.
no, it's
right.
not quite right. we're talking to Doug Janicke. I'm practicing saying that, and Doug, of course, is running for the DeKalb County Clerk and Recorder. Now, I found this really interesting. Did you use this, Doug? It's on the website of the DeKalb County Clerk and Recorder website. Considering running for public office, and then they kind of guide you right through the whole thing. Do you kind of follow that along? Are you familiar with that? Because I think it's great that people are reluctant to run for an office because they have no idea how to start. You know?
Yeah, so what I did when I decided I was interested in running for office, I reached out to the local Democrat Party here in DeKalb, and they kind of walked me through getting everything sent. But obviously having it very available, I did check on this and eye on it just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. But it's obviously an important resource to have available for people who are even thinking about it before they get started, understanding what they need to do in order to.
What if you remember here in DeKalb with the election for mayor, Lynn Wynn, who was running, I guess had filed her paperwork early, and then she had to go and declare she was an independent, then she had to declare it as a Democrat. Then they have another primary too. I guess it cost us some money to do that too. So people are still making mistakes in terms of registering and getting in to run for office.
Sure. Yeah. I was unfamiliar with that snafu there.
Yeah,
I could see that. I went in person the day that we were able to register, and the county clerk's office, ironically, and handed that paper over. So it was a pretty.
And it was everything good because there was also an issue with something that either was stapled and shouldn't have been stapled, or they had used a paper clip and then shouldn't use the paper clip.
I didn't touch.
It even gets down to that kind of nitty gritty stuff.
I brought in papers, and they are like, "There's a stapler here. You need to staple." They couldn't do it. They need to tell you, "Hey, here's where you need to staple. Put the stapler on. Click it. There you go."
Do you feel it should be so rigid, or is it's good that it's rigid because this is an election?
It's important to have processes, right? When you have that kind of paperwork that you have stacks and stacks of in terms of when you have, like you said, you have that many people registering to run for a Senate or even, county board, that kind of thing. It's important to be able to flip through that stuff in a manner that is consistent so you can see what you need to see. So I see why they have those processes in place.
Okay, very good. Now, obviously looking for extra help again when it comes election time. I know I read an article. I was telling Tasha Sims that it looks like DeKalb County is pretty good in terms of number of election judges, but all across the state and across the country, trying to get more young people involved. And she mentioned high school kids, seniors, and get an opportunity to be an election judge. I mean, that would change their life forever.
It's a fantastic program, I think, because you're getting young people involved in civics before they're able to vote. I think that getting someone to understand that process and how important it is, and it is very cool, that you're able to get these kids out of school for a day on whatever credit they need. I think it's a field trip credit that they get for the day. But like you said, it's more than that. You're learning about these important processes of local elections and seeing how important that is, and you take that back with you, communicate that with your friends, and that kind of stuff spreads around. And I think part of that program is why we've seen a good turnout here in DeKalb County.
Yeah, no, very, very well put too. And of course, in other races too. We talked about we're going to talk to all these before the election time here. But now it comes time to run for office, right, Doug? I mean, is this something you're reluctant to do, or you said you're used to now to speaking to people and being out amongst folks? And what are you going to do here in terms of campaigning?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of door knocking when the weather starts to get even a little bit warmer. It's going to be once the primary is over. It's you got to hit the ground running. So you got to make sure that people are aware of who you are. I'm working on the Facebook page. You got the ActBlue page there if people would like to donate some money for the signs, for the paperwork, all that stuff.
Okay, what ActBlue? What you call it? Now what is it?
Yes, ActBlue. So that's the Democrat fundraising site.
Oh, ActBlue. Okay, I got you.
ActBlue.com. So if you search, DeKalb County Clerk, ActBlue.com, my stuff will come up there. So you can, help me out a little bit. If you.
What will your message be? So you come knocking on my door, and I'm like, Morgan, what do you want? You're trying to sell me something. How do you, win them over? What will your main focus when you're going door to door to people?
Well, so it's one of those things where you don't like to look in these local elections at what is happening on the national level, but unfortunately at this point you have to look at it.
Yeah.
So you have a president, like I said, who wants elections run a certain way, and come 2028, you want to make sure that somebody is in that office that if they're told to do something, maybe uncouth, they are able to say no. That's not to say that Tasha isn't. I have no qualms that she is not doing a great job. I think you touched on it very briefly. There was an interview back in, I think it was 2022 when the last election was for county clerk, and she was asked who won the presidential election, and there was a little bit of hesitation there to say that Joe Biden won the election. And even that little bit of hesitation to me gives a bit of an indication that maybe you'd be willing to listen to what that person has to say. If you're told to jump, will you do it?
But that's funny. That goes all the way back to what we originally talked about, being a Democrat or Republican, and will that influence the job that you're doing? And as of right now, you don't think so. And so I'm hoping that you and Tasha will come on and debate here on our podcast. And would that be something you want to do? And would you feel like you'd have enough ammunition, if you would, or material to show them the difference between voting for you as opposed to Tasha Sims?
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing. As I said, I think that Tasha's done a fine job as DeKalb County Clerk, so it certainly wouldn't be anything of debating things that she's done wrong or things that could be done necessarily better, but it's strictly, to me, that aspect of keeping things fair and free.
Okay.
That's where my mind is at. That's why I find it important to run. When I was told that nobody was running for this position, I was like, that just can't stand. Somebody needs to stand up, and it's an important thing. So I would certainly be willing to come in and talk with Tasha. I certainly need to get acquainted with
and
her.
you can converse with each other without it becoming ugly, right?
Yes, exactly. And that wouldn't be a concern. Like I said, I think that she's done a fine job.
All right, great. Well, listen, it's great to get to know you, and it's wonderful that you're doing this. Abe Lincoln, I think he lost his first two elections that he ran for.
Sure.
What about you? If you do lose, what are your plans in terms of, are you going to stay in this? You're going to find another office to run for? Or what does Doug want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I would love to get involved in any way that I can. So, whether it's working for someone else's campaign come 2028 or running for a different office, that's absolutely something that I want to stay involved. It's not something that I'm thinking about currently.
Okay, well, good. Well, that's good that you're planning on winning. But again, election integrity, it's so important right now. And again, I think this primary is going to be a big test. But obviously, when we get to the midterms in November, Who knows how the landscape may change at that point, too. But you're watching it closely, and it's so important, isn't it? Because, as our 250th anniversary here, we're certainly, our democracy is being tested here with our checks and balances, and yet voting is such an important thing, and it's so important to keep that integrity, isn't it, Doug?
Absolutely. We have there's jokes and quips about perhaps not having a midterm election come November. So it's certainly an important thing to me, and like you said, I hope we have a good turnout to show no, this is an important institution, and we need to make sure that we maintain it.
Well, it's been a pleasure to get to know you better, and I know it'll be a real honor to have you and Tasha Sims here to talk about the DeKalb County Clerk and Recorder's Office. If we want to learn more about you, Doug, how can we do that?
Yeah, I actually just set up my Facebook page. I'll be posting stuff there as the campaign goes along. It's just Doug Janicke for DeKalb County Clerk. Like I said, my Act Blue page is there as well. I just kind of getting rolling on this, so we'll be rolling on more stuff. But keep an eye on the Facebook page. That'll let you know what I'm up to.
Well, it's refreshing to meet somebody, especially a younger person like yourself, Doug, that wants to run for office and wants to make a difference instead of just hiding your head in the sand. What, that doesn't really affect me immediately, so just let it go. So kudos to you for doing that.
I appreciate that very much, and I appreciate what you do here. Getting a platform for local candidates to get their voice heard. It's not something that everybody has access to all over the country, so it's an important thing.
Well, thank you so much, Doug. We've had Doug Janicke has been our guest. Again, he's running for DeKalb County Clerk and Recorder. That'll be in November. Of course, we'll have him back. Hopefully with Tasha Sims that we discuss running for that office, and such an important office. And again, Doug, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And that's CD Ryan Unleashed, a podcast number 47.